Chopper crash should have been prevented. It is Donald Trump who has gone on to say that it was going straight for the aircraft. The aircraft had been there for an extended period of time, and this really could have been prevented given the fact that visibility was absolutely clear. An American Airlines flight that has collided in mid-air with a Black Hawk helicopter in Washington, D.C., with both crashing into the river. The small passenger plane, which was coming from Kansas, was carrying 60 passengers on board along with 4 crew members, while the chopper had 3 soldiers on board. According to reports, 19 bodies have been recovered so far. The U.S. Figure Skating Association has confirmed several members of the skating community were on board the plane. The collision happened within minutes before the plane was meant to land on the runway at the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. The first call was received at 9:48 p.m. local time, and within 10 minutes, rescuers were on the spot. 300 responders are involved in the operations that are underway and will carry on through the night. The big concern being, as far as the rescuers are concerned, is they're up against various challenges as the weather is extremely rough. The conditions are extremely windy at this point in time, and the weather is very, very cold. It's freezing, and so is the water. It's very late at night, therefore it is also extremely dark. Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump says that this should have been prevented, questioning why the helicopter didn't go up or down or turn, saying that the airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport, and the helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It's clear, as far as the night is concerned, the lights on the plane were blazing, asking as to why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they really saw the plane. This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good is what the message that the President of the United States has said right after that collision. Let's just listen into what the authorities in the United States had to say.
There's currently about 300 responders working. We have boats from all throughout the region, police and fire boats. We're operating under a unified command. Everybody's together. So we also have requested state police helicopters from Maryland, and the Coast Guard helicopter is working. So this is a state and federal response as well. U.S. Coast Guard's got some boats in the water as well. So it's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough for the responders. It's cold. They're dealing with relatively windy conditions. Wind is hard out on the river.
I spoke with the President's National Security Advisor, and I have not talked to the President yet, and I do not know what the mission was.
Let's also listen to what the family members and people known to the victims on the flight really had to say as to what really happened from the information they're gathering on the ground.
Who was on the flight that you know of?
My daughter's best friend and her mom.
And had been travelling to DC, obviously. For what purpose?
She was on a athletic trip. She was on an athletic trip. Yeah.
And based in Kansas, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And what do you think of what you've heard?
I haven't heard much. I got off work and I came straight here to be with my friends. So.
Yeah. A time of great distress.
Yeah. Thank you.
Family members and friends are reaching the airport in order to gather more information, gather the information they can as far as this mid-air collision is concerned. So from what we really know so far, from what the authorities are saying, that the rescuers are up against a lot of challenges, and they're going to continue operations all through the night in order to find as many people as they can. So far, they have recovered 19 bodies in all. Well, there were 60 passengers on board along with 4 crew members and 3 soldiers on board that chopper. So the rescue operations are underway. The airport has been shut till 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Well, let's just also get you a ground report with Nick Harper and Alistair D'Souza, who have the very latest details from the Reagan Airport in Washington. Nick, over to you first. Explain to us what really happened here.
Yeah, just very interesting. You mentioned the fact that the officials who gave that press conference did not want to be drawn on the number of fatalities. Of course, that was the information that many of us were waiting to hear. Those reports that 18 bodies have been pulled from the water came from a police official speaking to US media, but it was not confirmed during the course of that press conference. What they did say is that 300 first responders are working on the scene, and you can see some of what is still taking place at the airport behind me. This is a live shot of what is happening at Ronald Reagan Airport. That crash happening just before 9 p.m. local time. It's now 1:30 in the morning, so it's 4.5 hours more than since that plane crash between the commercial airline and the military aircraft. 60 passengers on board the plane, plus 4 crew and 3 army personnel on board the helicopter. Very much a frantic rescue operation was mounted then within the hour after that crash took place. The plane broke into at least a couple of pieces, was partially submerged in the river, the helicopter upside down in the river, and those rescue teams having to work through the night, as they still are, but in very difficult conditions, not just dealing with the dark, but also dealing with cold and wind. It's around freezing at the moment, the wind chill making it even colder. So a very difficult situation, but of course one that started as a search and rescue operation, quickly turning into a search and recovery operation as bodies are pulled from the water, bodies of people who were on that plane and in that helicopter. Just on Donald Trump first, we've heard from him a couple of times. First, an official statement put out by the White House on his behalf, a much more measured tone from the president in that, in which he said that he had been fully briefed. He called it a terrible accident. He praised the incredible work of the first responders and said that he was monitoring the situation. But then, following up in the last hour or so on social media with a much more social media type response, the type of response that we would normally get from Donald Trump on Truth Social, his platform. And in that, he said, this is a bad situation that looks like it could have been, or rather should have been, prevented. He said not good in clear capital letters. Also saying, quite simply, he didn't understand why the helicopter went up and down, and questioning the control tower and the commands that they were giving. That will, of course, be central to the investigation that's now underway from the National Transportation Safety Board to work out why the plane and the helicopter were in the same airspace at the same time. It is a very busy airspace. It's one of the most highly controlled, highly regulated in the whole of the United States, partly because the White House is about half a mile away, the Pentagon a similar distance away as well. 800 takeoffs and landings take place in that airport, so very busy in terms of commercial air travel. But in terms of the pilots who navigate their way into land at Ronald Reagan, many of them say that it is one of the most challenging approaches that they have to deal with in the world, partly because they have to turn very hard, banking to the right as they come around a number of high-rise buildings, and as they make that approach with the river on the left, with buildings on the right. So therefore, they are focused on what needs to take place. They're listening to the commands from the control tower. They're looking at the instruments and the control panel in front of them. It may simply have been a case that they were not also navigating out the window by simply looking what was taking place right in front of them, and therefore may not have seen that the helicopter was so incredibly close to them, of course so close that it resulted in a crash. But like I say, that will be central to that investigation, really to try and get to the bottom of how this accident could have unfolded. I mean, they would have been looking, they would have been assessing the situation around them. What we do know is that it was a training flight, the Army confirming that the 3 personnel who were on board, who were taking part in a training flight, which is not uncommon at that time of night. The Army say that those training flights often happen when there is less commercial air travel. At 9 p.m. at night, it is beginning to quieten down. It is a slightly less busy time of day. But in terms of flying blind, I'm sure that that was not the case. They would have had their eyes open and been looking at the monitoring systems around them, listening to the commands that they would have been getting over the airwaves as well.
Lots of challenges here tonight, especially because of those freezing temperatures. Remember, once that plane collided with that Black Hawk helicopter, it went down in that Potomac River behind me. You can see some of those flashing red and blue lights. Emergency crews still lined up over 3 hours later, trying their very best to get people out of that water, hopefully people alive, but it looks like it's turned into more of a search operation rather than a rescue operation at this point in time. No word yet on the exact number of casualties, details coming in that perhaps 18 people have died, but confirmation still awaited on other numbers as well. So we're looking at about 60 passengers on that American Airlines flight, along with 4 crew members and also another 3 on that Black Hawk helicopter. Now, the Black Hawk helicopter was on a training exercise, is what we understand. Generally, it would have VIPs on board, VIPs going from various places to the Pentagon, which is not very far from the Ronald Reagan Airport, where I am at right here. But in this case, officials confirming that none of those Pentagon VIPs were on that Black Hawk flight. So rescue operations continuing at this hour, wee hours of the morning. It's going to continue. Hopefully more things get a little bit more easy once daylight sets in, because rescue operators are working here under the cover of darkness. Divers going into that frigid water, trying to perhaps fish out debris, but most importantly, people, in the hope of perhaps finding someone alive. Now, I'm going to get out of frame here to hopefully give you a better view of that scene right there behind me, where what you see are those twinkling lights. Those are in fact the emergency crew. You can perhaps again hear a helicopter hovering above. Beyond those lights that you see is the Potomac River, where that plane went down. The cold is, of course, one of the key things that would likely hamper efforts. We do not know what the condition of the river is in that particular spot, but I can tell you I just was on a flight that flew into Ronald Reagan Airport just on Monday. And when I was flying in, I could see that the river was iced over in many places. So it would mean that it would make it all the more difficult for rescue boats to get to the actual place where this plane went down, where the debris settled in. So getting there, cutting through the ice would be obviously very difficult, and then getting divers to go in, it's very difficult. It's an operation that also puts the lives of these people, these rescue operators, these divers at risk as well, coming into these frigid temperatures, having to battle pieces of ice and ice shards into that river there. So that's making it all the more difficult in order to get to any survivors. And like we were saying, it's looking a little bleak, increasingly bleak at this point in time, of any survivors being potentially fished out.
Now, the airport has been shut for all takeoffs and landings till about 11 o'clock in the morning, Washington time. But in the moments after the collision, air traffic controllers could be heard redirecting incoming aircrafts to other airports in the region. Listen in.
Did you see that? 472. American 3130, go around, turn left in 250, climb maintain 3000.
Okay, left heading 350, 3000, American 3130.
Blackjack 3, can you return to base? What? Blackjack 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. I need you to land immediately. Can you go to Dulles for a few minutes? Marshal 7, proceed due westbound. Contact Dulles Tower 120.1. Marshal 13, can you go to Baltimore?
Did you see that?
472. American 3130, go around, turn left in 250, climb maintain 3000.
Okay, left heading 350, 3000, American 3130.
Blackjack 3, can you return to base? What? Blackjack 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. I need you to land immediately. Can you go to Dulles for a few minutes? Marshal 7, proceed due westbound. Contact Dulles Tower 120.1. Marshal 1-3, can you go to Baltimore?
And with that, we're slipping a very short break. On the other side, we have Vimal Roy, aviation expert, joining us from Dubai to get us more on this. For now, we're slipping into a short break.
No child should suffer the torture of trachoma, but so many are in pain right now. Nananga's lashes have turned inwards. They rip and tear away at his eyes. Pamelo's sight could be gone forever. He's just 3 years old. Kofanga screams for his mother. His eyes are so infected that he can't even see her. For so many children in the world's poorest countries, trachoma is torture. It's a painful infection often spread by flies, and it's destroying children's eyesight. But it could be stopped if you help today. By calling 0800 021 3925 and giving £2 a month to Sightsavers, you can help make sure children get the treatment they desperately need. You'll help us bring them the medicines and the care that can treat infections. And that means you'll be helping to save children from the torture of trachoma and a life of blindness. Please help us reach them. Call 0800 021 3925, text C7 to 82727, or go online and give just £2 a month now. Because we need you to help save the sight of children like Nananga. We need you to help save them from the torture of trachoma.
Step into an unforgettable year with a VIP, a very important postcode. Because in People's Postcode Lottery's February draws, players in one winning postcode will each win £12,000 every month for 12 months. Fill your calendar with the things you've always dreamed of. Sign up before midnight tomorrow for you and your neighbours' chance to win £12,000 every month for 12 months. Is your door in the draw?
Add light and a touch of style to your home with Luma Lantern from JML. The light and motion-activated solar-powered lantern light. Just peel and stick for easy installation. The built-in solar panel charges it during the day and it automatically switches on at night, then turns off when it's light. Choose from 3 different brightness settings for the perfect hassle-free lighting this winter with Luma Lantern. Only $14.99 from Asda, Argos, Morrison's, Tesco and jmldirect.com.
Don't you have Watchdog Lock? No! What's that? Don't be a victim, yeah. Get Watchdogs, 3-star solid secure diamond locks. They are anti-pick, anti-snap, anti-bar. बोले तो fully anti-chore. जब तक जोड़ेंगे नहीं, तब तक छोड़ेंगे.
Save up to £220 on your home insurance. He's just used Confused. JustUsedConfused.com.
Welcome back. You're watching the World News, and to know more on that mid-air collision that took place between an American Airlines jet flight carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members, it collided with a military helicopter that had 3 soldiers on board. To know more on this, we have Vimal Roy, aviation expert, joining us to get us more on this all the way from Dubai. Sir, when we say that this collision that took place, when the visuals that we have on our screen, President Trump there saying that this should have been prevented. The question being, how did this happen in the first place, as visibility wasn't an issue? Clearly the plane was there for an extended period of time. How could this have been prevented?
Thanks for having me on. It's very difficult without any data, and that's what the investigators will be looking at the moment. Of course, whether you call it search or rescue, that's going to go on because lives are at stake, but really it's about the data. How could it happen? You could speculate. The point that's not been covered so far is that, upon landing, as the aircraft, when it's landing and the speed that it's going, it's actually very similar to the speed of the Black Hawk helicopter, assuming it's cruising. And this being one of the most regulated airspaces on that side of the US, because of the proximity with the Pentagon and the White House. So you would imagine that this happened very, very, very quickly. How it happened, it's very difficult to say. Chances are that the aircraft was on a normal landing pattern, so it wouldn't have been anything out of the ordinary. Chances are there was something to do with the helicopter. But what, how, who, it's very difficult to say at the moment.
So what, in your opinion, went down here in terms of where does the buck really stop? Was it perhaps communication with the control room or a technical snag that could possibly explain this? Because from what we do know about the chopper is that it was on a training flight. This was a training session.
Yeah, so training flight could mean many things, right? I mean, it's only 3 people, so you would assume, unfortunately in this case, that training was training for the pilot. And if that was the case, then, lots of other questions need to be asked, which is why I keep going back to the data, because you need to look at the flight logs. You need to look at, what was happening, what were the instructions. The aircraft was clearly on a normal landing path, so nothing anomalous there. It's really down to the helicopter and whether they followed the instructions, whether they were at the height they were supposed to have been, whether they were in the location that they were supposed to have been. They were clearly told to go behind the aircraft. Now, when that was issued, when they executed those orders, all of these things will come into play when they look at the data as to where the helicopter was, what was it doing, what was it not doing, and so on.
Right, Vimal Rai, what are the protocols that are followed for such training sessions that are undertaken by the military?
I'm not privy to those kind of protocols, but you would assume that in this particular scenario where this has happened, in such close proximity to the White House, and we all remember what happened more than 20 years ago, this is one of the most controlled airspaces in the world. You would assume that they have protocols in place for things like this because it's an airspace that is used precisely by Black Hawks and commercial aircraft at the same time. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. Somebody didn't follow instructions, right? That's the most likely scenario here.
Right, of course, this brings to mind the tragedy of 1982 in Washington. What lessons can be learned here?
I think the lessons are that, you can never take anything for granted, and you can have protocols on paper and you can have systems, but 2 things will always be different. One is obviously systems, so we don't know if the helicopter malfunctioned in some way. We just don't know any of that yet. By the same token, we don't know if the aircraft had any problems. Chances are not, because they would have had that as part of the control tower conversations before. And the second obviously controllable factor is humans, right? Human error and with pilots. And I'm not saying that's what caused it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that those are 2 things that protocols cannot cover. And in some cases, they go well, as with what happened with Captain Sully, when he landed the aircraft in spite of everything else that trained him not to do it. And in some cases, it doesn't go well. So human error and really systems that fail. Those are the 2 things that could possibly go wrong here.
Right, this collision that took place in mid-air, it resulted in the plane to be broken into pieces. That we can see visuals on our screen of that plane colliding with the military chopper, bursting into flames, and of course fell into the water. So both the chopper and the American Airlines jet went into the water very close to the airport in Washington. From what we know so far is that 19 bodies have been recovered. Rescue operations are underway. There were 60 passengers on board along with 4 crew members and also 3 soldiers on board that chopper. We will keep following this story. We also have Vimal Rai, our aviation expert, joining us from Dubai. Sir, when it comes to landing, so close yet so far, within minutes the plane would have landed. People on board had called their family members saying that they're going to be landing in a matter of a few minutes, perhaps 10 to 15 minutes. And, it's when the family members responded to those on board and the message did not get delivered is when they realized something was wrong. What are the protocols and measures that the planes take when it comes to landings?
Landings, so unfortunately in aviation, some of the most dangerous times for an aircraft is during takeoff and landing. And it's not got anything to do with the fact that the pilots are in control. It's just got to do with the fact that, that's when the plane is closest to the ground and there is obviously the least amount of time available for any kind of human or computer-controlled reactions. Landing protocols, we have hundreds of thousands of flights that take off around the world, and by far nothing ever happens. Landing protocols are extremely safe for all kinds of aircraft in all airports in the world. Pilots are trained for these particular incidents and particular scenarios to the T. You would have to assume that because of the speed at which that they were traveling, that there was very, very little time for any kind of reaction.
Right.
The speed at which you're landing and the speed at which the helicopter is, if you see something, it's milliseconds of reaction time that you have.
Right. Thank you so much, Vimal Rai, for explaining to us the protocols that are followed. And of course, visibility wasn't an issue. And pilots, like you said, are trained to the T. They're trained even to land with absolutely no visibility. And here, visibility wasn't an issue. But right now, the rescuers are being challenged in many ways in regard to the weather conditions, especially as cold as it is in Washington. The water there even much colder. Well, we will keep getting the latest on this news and this story. For now, we're slipping into a very short break.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
Now we move on to the next category, which is the Youth Icon of the Year. And for this, मैं एक बार फिर से request करूँगी आशा पारेख जी का स्टेज पर आने के लिए, और साथ ही इनवाइट करेंगे मयंक अग्रवाल जी को, CEO Gallant Group of Industries, to join us on stage for this next category of awards.
Ananya Pandey.
Congratulations, Ananya. And Ananya Pandey, actor, is getting this award for her advocacy work on combating cyberbullying, growing achievements in the film industry, and strong influence on social media. And that's what makes Ananya Pandey NDTV Youth Icon of the Year 2024. She represents a blend of modern values, relatability, and a commitment to meaningful causes, which are essential qualities for inspiring today's youth.
Congratulations, very many
Thank
congratulations.
You. Thank
and
you.
Ananya, there are just a few questions for
Yes.
you. You've, diverse characters, and you've made a shift from big screen to OTT. Big superstars have done their shift. What is your opinion on that, and what's your next move?
Firstly, I just want to thank NDTV for this award. It's truly very, very humbling, and to get it from Asha Parekh ji, I'm such a big fan of your work, so this is a pinch me moment for sure. I don't believe any screen is too big or small. It's a screen at the end of the day, and the world is developing so fast. There's so many changes that are being made, so I think we're all just keeping up with the times.
Ananya, the fact is that 2024, this year has been phenomenal for you. One success after another. Kahan Kho Gaye Hum, Call Me Bae, CTRL. How does it feel to have multiple...
has been requesting and appealing to the devotees and the pilgrims to take their holy dips in their nearest Snan Ghats, which has been created for this Kumbh Mela. There are more than 10 temporary Snan Ghats around Prayagraj Kumbh Kshetra. Still, the belief, the faith which attracts them, pulls them to this nose, Sangam nose. That's where this unfortunate incident had happened. We are going to give you the other side view of this place. This is the place where the akharas also come for their holy dip. This is the exact place where the three rivers have their confluence, the Ganga, Yamuna and the mythical Saraswati. This is where they meet, and this is where it is considered pious, sacred to take the holy dip during the Kumbh fair, and this is why it attracts so many people, not even from our country but across the world. And you can see the number of people. It's not any less than yesterday, and the holy dips are continuing because it's a fair of 45 days and it's going to be of this magnitude, this scale throughout the 45 days. Government has estimated around more than 44 crore of people, which is not double but 4 times the population of Prayagraj is going to come here for their holy dips. And you can see all around the nose, the Sangam nose, that people are joining here for their holy dips. And this is the place which was the place for that unfortunate stampede which occurred because of too much crowd.
All right, now we are learning a PIL has also been filed in the Supreme Court accusing the UP administration of lapses, negligence and utter failure. Well, it points out that the VIP movement should not interfere with or compromise the safety of the devotees, and that maximum space for entry and exit should be provided to the devotees at the Mahakumbh. Well, the PIL also demanded UP government to submit a status report on the stampede and asking for subsequently initiating legal action against those found responsible for negligence. Well, my colleague Ishwarya Jain gets us more.
Well, currently we are at Motilal Nehru Medical College in Prayagraj, where all the bodies from the stampede which happened in Prayagraj were brought in, and the injured were also taken to the nearby hospitals, including the Motilal Nehru Medical College here in Prayagraj. Ambulances were seen yesterday and they were taking bodies after the identification being done by the family members. Some of the family members who were there at the time of stampede are still here searching for their loved ones. आप लोग कहाँ से हैं?
हम लोग पंचायत उत्तरी तेलुआ, थाना नौतन, जिला पश्चिमी चंपारण, बिहार से हैं।
अच्छा, आप लोग कितने लोग आए थे वहाँ से?
60 आदमी आए थे।
60 आदमी आए थे
जी।
आप थे वहाँ पर जब ये भगदड़ मची?
जी, हम थे।
क्या कुछ आप लोग पूरा याद करते हैं, क्या कुछ हुआ था, और आप लोगों के कितने परिजन अभी भी आपको नहीं मिल रहे हैं? आप चक्कर लगा रहे हैं बार बार अस्पताल?
हमारा 2 परिजन नहीं मिल रहा है। एक हमारा भाई का पत्नी और दूसरा एक बगल का गांव का है पड़ोसी।
अच्छा, क्या कुछ हो गया था वहाँ पर? आप भी वहाँ पर मौजूद थे संगम पर?
स्नान करके हम लोग जब निकले तो वहीं भीड़ इतना ना इकट्ठा हो गया कि कोई निकल पाया नहीं रहा था। इतना ना इधर से उधर धक्का मुक्की और ये चलने लगा, और उधर से बंद था, अब कोई खुला नहीं था कि लोग निकले, बस वही में ये हो गया।
आपने क्या देखा वहाँ पर? क्या
भाई साहब, हम अपना जान बचाने के लिए, हम लोग जितना धक्का हुआ था हम लोग अपना जान बचा कर सब लोग निकलने लगे, और क्या कर सकते हैं उसके अलावा।
और आपके लोगों के मैं देख रहा हूँ पैरों में चप्पल वगैरह भी नहीं है, सामान वगैरह सब
हमारे गाड़ी पर है।